name is Irena Swanson, and today I want to show you how to make rows of triangles very fast using a method that I call tube piecing. Here is a quilt top made of different rows of triangles, and all the bases in all the rows measure the same, but the tip angles are different. Here it's 30, 45, 90 degrees. The method works for all angles, all sizes, and in fact the triangles do not have to be symmetric. Here's an example of a row of non-symmetric triangles. This is still a tube, and I plan to incorporate this tube with its symmetric images in alternate places to create blue arrows pointing one way and orange arrows creating the other way. So this method is very versatile. Not only it produces all sorts of different triangles, it can even be used for making parallelograms. And here is an example of such a quilt with parallelograms. I will show you later where the construction of triangles and parallelograms diverge. And I can even combine rows of parallelograms with different tip angles. Here they're 45 and 60 degree tip angles. Okay. So how does the method go? You start with strips. It is most efficient if the strips are longer, so I cut them selvage to selvage. And I sew the strips together at some offset. And here I'm trying to create tip angle 60 degrees, which is not up here. I can pre-cut the strips at 60 degrees or just offset. I do not recommend pre-cutting because now you're dealing with bias before it is absolutely necessary. Anyway, you do this offset, and after all is done, you press all seam allowances either all in one direction or all towards the dark fabrics. And after that, you have to be precise. You have to trim this down to accurate tip angle. So in this case, 60 degrees. Pretend that I did trim accurately at 60 degrees. And now what I do is I sew the two outer edges together. As you can see, the two outer edges are straight, so the seam will be straight. However, there will be some twisting because of the offset. I already have one such seam made here. See all the twisting, straight seam, but the twisting underneath. Okay. Then when you release this twist, what you get is a primary wide tube. You press that latest seam allowance, and when you turn it inside out, you get a better view of this primary wide tube. A primary wide tube then gets cut into primary narrow tubes. And I have here two primary narrow tubes from two different primary wide tubes. And then to create parallelogram tops, I merge these like that, and I probably want to merge them, make them point to point, and I sew many of these wide tubes together for tops like that. But for triangles, we have to do some kind of offset to create room for subsequent seam allowances. So this is what I call edge shift, this distance. Once I measure the edge shift, then I just flip over on that side and sew. So sewing these primary narrow tubes creates a secondary wide tube. Here is an example of a gorgeous secondary wide tube. And you can see these plentiful seam allowances so that when we cut it down the middle, we will have plenty of room for subsequent seams. And look at this. You can already see rows of triangles, and they'll be cut also in that way. All right. So here is a secondary wide tube made up of only 6 primary narrow tubes. And then the next will be cutting through here. You want to cut on a pressed surface. In general, it's very hard to press on a tube, but all you really have to do is press along one of these wide buffer zones, and then mark with a pencil down the middle and cut with scissors. I already did that. Once you cut one layer of the tube only, what you get is a parallelogram. Now with this parallelogram, we could cut through all of these extra buffer zones, and that was done here. So here this was made up of 4 primary narrow tubes, and then I cut across. Now I'm doing it this way. When I cut across, and then I can rotate every other one, I'll just rotate one, and then a nice design is starting to show. I would also rotate this one, and then I can sew these together. So in the same way, we would probably position these on the diagonal. In the same way, I created a top like this. So this is one way of proceeding from this stage. But this is not my recommendation. This is time consuming. I have a faster way of finishing. So rather than cutting all the way across, what we do now is slit. Slit, leave about a half or an inch of uncut area. And then we will sew this top edge to the bottom edge. I find it much easier to make one long seam than to make 10 short seams accurately. Yeah. So this sewing of the top and bottom edge is accomplished here. You probably cannot see, but this is a seam, but everywhere else there are those slits that will next get extended. So I press this latest seam and then extend these slits into full cuts. Here is an example where I already did extend a slit into a full cut. Normally my tubes are wider for more comfortable work, but for a demo I'm using just this narrow version. So when you take 2 of these secondary narrow tubes, then probably once they're cut apart, probably you rotate one of them so all triangles point the same way, or maybe you do some offsetting, and then you sew these together. Again, in your case, you'll have a wider circumference, and you will want to sew many more of these secondary narrow tubes together. Here, I sewed together just 2 of them. You press enough along one vertical line, and then once you press, you cut through there, and here is a quilt top. And again, in your case, it will be wider and many more rows for something like this. If you want to create quilt tops in which all the angles are 60 degrees, and if you want the final height to be 3 inches, then you proceed as follows. The strip width in the beginning is 4 1/4 inch, and then those vertical offsets, how you stagger the strips, is about 2 1/8 inch. Tube width to create primary narrow tubes is 3 1/2 inches, and the offset, the edge shift to sew the primary narrow tubes together is 9/16 of an inch. Yeah. I want to finish with showing off some of the other 60-degree angle quilt tops. So, here is one possible way of making color combinations. This one was made from the same primary narrow tubes as the other one, but just the offsetting of secondary narrow tubes is a little different. This one was done in different sizes and different color combinations, but it's still 60 degrees. And then finally, this was made from 3 distinct primary white tube. In one primary white tube, I sewed together 3 blues, 3 reds, 3 blues, 3 reds. And the next one, 3 blues, 3 yellows, 3 blues, 3 yellows, and then the other one had reds and yellows. And then proceed as before with positioning the tubes carefully. I hope that you enjoyed this session on making rows of triangles, and for more information visit my www.tubepiecing.com.